we're all salespeople. I say this, we're all selling all the time. And every time I ask him, how's things in the Bay Area, he always is like, it's great. It's the best place ever. There's no place that beats this place. And however your version of that is so damn important when you are greeting new people, because who wants to see the first time? Yeah, things kind of suck. It's been a shitty day. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. No. No, 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 no. People want to hear things are awesome. I'm pumped. This is great. We need to do this thing. It makes a difference. So good on you, Mr. Craig.
Can I say one thing to add to that, Joe?
Oh, maybe.
Well, I think we should all feel that way about where we're from and where we are, right? And it's like we kind of create a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven, depending on our point of view. So,
point of view, mister. So I try to kind of change it up every week, and we're going to do that again this week. But this week I have no calculator buttons for you, but I do have some notes to make. I don't have a handout, so I'll say it again. As always, bring pen and paper. But what I want to do is I'll go first, have my part of the talk, then we'll have a discussion as usual. But I want to talk about some money philosophy and money strategy stuff, money and investing, which is what we do on this webinar most of the time. Okay, so I want to start with 3 words. And I'm going to give you my definitions of these words. And you can write down my definitions, you write down your own definition, whatever you want to do. We'll come back here in a little bit and talk about them again, okay? So here's the first word. The first word is happiness. Like happiness. That's the first word. And what I tell my students in Desert Pencil all the time is that when we're working with clients or investing for ourselves, I think we oftentimes lose sight of the primary objective, which is to be happy, however we define that. Okay. Now, this is not therapy. I mean, it kind of is, but we're not going to do a whole 50-minute hour on happiness. But what I've learned in my life, and I didn't figure this out on my own. I learned this from a PhD at, I think it was Yale or Harvard, wrote a white paper about happiness. And he summarized human happiness this way, and I've said this before. People are happy when their expectations are met or exceeded. Okay, so the fulcrum on which happiness swings is the word expectations. So whether you're investing for yourself or investing for other people or just trying to make people in your life happy, my counsel is as follows. The first thing you should do is try to understand what they expect. And if you go back in your own life and your own relationships and your own investments and your own whatever, you will quickly see a pattern. And it's exactly what I'm saying right now. When you don't get your expectations met, you're not happy. So that's rule 1, job 1. And that's why I work so hard in Does It Pencil to help learn how to quantify what investments are doing so you have a clear benchmark to measure that investment against. Okay, now I've talked about different kinds of investments in here. We're not going to do that today. But we start with that, happiness and expectations, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a small example. And it's actually a real life example. I'm not going to use names. But I was writing my blog for this week, and I'm tearing a page off the blog. We'll call them person A and person B, okay? Very simple example. Person A makes $20,000 a month, okay? Well, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Person B makes $4,000 a month, okay? Not as good, but okay. All right, I'm just going to stop there for a second. Without thinking about this whole lot, Tien, I'm going to start with you. Who's happier, A or B?
We don't really know yet, do we?
Oh, just pick one, A or B.
If I had to choose 20 a month.
20 is better than 4. A, good answer. Okay, Jeff, how about you? Who's happier, A or B?
Uh, don't know. I would, yeah. On the surface of things, you think the 20 would be happier.
Exactly.
But, for
Exactly.
some,
Yeah, don't
for
overthink
some, money's
this.
a real burden.
Don't overthink this. Yeah, I know a lot of rich people that are miserable. Get to that next. So let's assume next, here's the rest of the story. Person A has $25,000 a month in expenses. Person B has $3,000 a month in expenses. Who's happier now? Obviously, it's B. Okay? So when we talk about these notions of money, investing, happiness, humans trying to get through this thing called life, I just think it's so important to understand what are your expectations and what's your reality. Because oftentimes, I think we're chasing the wrong ball. We are. Oh, I got to be rich. Rich, rich, rich. Make more money. More, 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 more. Well, it only matters relative to what you need. And my argument is this, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and we've talked about governments on this call as well. When you spend more than you make, you have a problem. And most people, not all people, but a lot of people, and certainly most governments I've ever seen, they don't have a revenue problem, they have a spending problem. Okay? So if you as a person do not have a system to keep track of your personal world, get one, and get it yesterday. Now, my personal system, and I've talked about this before too, I use a computer program called Quicken. It's not QuickBooks. It's Quicken. It's simply an electronic check register. And I just put all my statement information into it. I set up my reports, press a button, there it is right there. It's awesome. I've been using this for 30 years. Okay, there's different programs you can get, but it's printing the report so you know where you are. And I can't begin to tell you the number of people I've talked to over the years that have no idea. No, I'm not saying you have to go, oh, I have, $20,614.11. I'm not saying that. But you should have a pretty good idea of your inflows and your outflows. And not just a gut. You should look at your numbers, and especially your expenses. Very, very important. Okay. We talked about happiness. We talked about expectations. Here's the third word, and I kind of talked about this a little bit already, but I'm going to circle back to it. This is how I define rich. You're rich, money rich, when you have more than you need. That's what it is. Now, there's one more little piece to that goes like this. And that is your point of view. And I said it would come back to what Craig said earlier. The point of view that we need to adopt about money is not about the present and not about the past. It's about the future. Because you can't do a damn thing about the past. You are where you are right now. So the only thing you can manipulate is your future. And that's where your focus should be. Will I have enough in my future? And once we can shift our thinking from, the past or the present and look at the future with money, I think then you're onto something. Then your focus changes, your thinking changes, your actions change, and your result changes. Okay, I saw an awesome interview one time with Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy. And I don't have a link for it. It's on the YouTube. You can find it. It's like a 1-hour interview. And he said a couple things that really stuck with me. And one of them was this. He's always thinking 3 months ahead. That's a simple and powerful thing. He's always thinking 3 months ahead. So I'm sitting here right now and I adopt the Bezos philosophy. Here's what I'm thinking. What am I doing after New Year's? What am I doing the first week of January? What changes can I make? What actions can I do? What results am I going to have? Not in Q4 25, but in Q1 26. And when I get into January, I'm already thinking about April. Okay. I think that's I've been working on that. I'm not super good at it, but I'm getting better. But it's on my radar. I'm already planning for the first quarter of next year. I'm not a big planner, full disclosure. Okay. Let's stop there for a second. Kelly, what did you think of my definition of rich?
Spot on for sure.
Okay.
And I'm the worst planner ever. I used to be a good planner when I was young, but I am so the opposite now. I abhor it. I never look at the calendar other than on my phone, and looking at what's far out or planning vacations. It's a nightmare for me. Yeah. I don't know why either. I don't know
Raise
why
your
I
hand if you're
changed.
like me and Kelly. Because people, I guess it's just you and me, sister. Okay. So sometimes what helps is getting someone to help you do that. You know, a partner, your husband, your wife, an accountability person, whatever. I mean, I've really
Or how
learned,
about a travel agent?
or a travel agent. I used one of those actually last time I went to Europe. It was one of the smartest decisions I ever made.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I could have done it online, but like, I don't know anything. So it was
I know
about
it.
Europe. So it was totally good $500 whatever I paid that person to plan our trip. It was magnificent. So yeah, I think knowing your strengths and weaknesses, never a bad thing. But the planning deal, important. Jacques, question for you. How do you feel about your personal security about your financial future? I'm taking a guess here that you're over 25, I think. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, a day or two. I am.
A day or two. So how are you feeling about what's in front of you? You okay?
Uh, I have learned in the last 5 years with my wife's medical problems to be a better planner, and I give thanks to whatever power I acknowledge every night for Google Calendar, because it keeps me on the straight and narrow, and not missing doctor's appointments or whatever.
That's good. That's good. How about you, Tian? I know, excuse me, I know you got a couple little kids, or three? Is that right? Three of them.
I have 3. Yeah.
They're little kids, right?
Yes.
Because you're only like 30 or 31, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure.
I got a decade on that.
A decade
I'm in
on
my
that.
40s.
Okay. So, how are you and your husband feeling about your financial future, the future?
You know, we're kind of in the thick of it, so I don't think we feel we need to get things straightened out, because we're that sandwich generation that we're trying to build for the kids, but we're also in the thick of taking care of our elders.
Yeah.
And both mentally, physically, and financially, we're kind of bearing everything right now.
Yeah.
So there's stuff we put away, and then we have to reach for it, because of all the needs. And also, you know, our risk taking, like you said, we're in that middle section where we're taking more risks, and so we have to be mindful about those risks. It's like this right now, Joe.
Okay. So I have a homework assignment for you and your husband, when, if, and as appropriate. Okay. And this is for everybody, but I'm talking to you right now. It's one question. It's not an easy question, but it's a damn important one. Here's the question. How much is enough? I think too many of us either never ask that question or wait too long to ask it. And, you know, I'm going to talk about time value of money in just a minute, but that's the simplest tool that I can give anybody to sit down and start having a focused thinking conversation about their financial future is, how much am I going to need? Okay. Now I'm going to give you two numbers because I have a couple different people that I work with money, and you've met one of them, Nick, and he's awesome. And Nick manages a lot of my retirement money, but the money that's in the stock stuff, and it's not all there, but the part that is, I have him take care of that. And when we've done forecasting for my portfolio, there's two numbers that we use, and he's very conservative. He assumes 6% growth and 4% inflation. It's very conservative. Okay. But that's an expectation. Now, my overall portfolio this year is up over 20% so far. So, I've beaten the 6 thing by 3x. There will be years when I don't, and there's years when I haven't. But right now, it's good. But I think you need to have some kind of numerical expectation to plug in. I'm just giving you what he uses for me. You can use whatever you want, but that's a place to start. And don't forget about the inflation thing. Okay, that's really, really important. And if we have time at the end, I'm going to give you another little thing that I'm working on about that. Okay. Happy, expectations, and rich. Those 3 words. I think those are the foundations of our relationship with money, as I like to say it. Okay. Here's the next 3 things I want you to write down. And these are what I call the opening salvo of Course 1 in Desert Pencil. Okay. Here's the first word. Appreciation. That's the first word. Bless you. The second words, it's 2 words, cash flow. And the third word, final word, is combination. So you've got appreciation, cash flow, and the combination. Okay. Now let me just take a minute and talk about those in a broad brush, general context about real estate, since I think pretty much everybody here is a real estate person. Okay. So let's start with appreciation, because that's the easy one. And that's been the Kool-Aid we've all drank. It's the story we tell. It's the song we sing. It's all that kind of stuff. And especially what we saw during the COVID time, it was great. Okay. And again, going back to Desert Pencil Course 1, Time Value of Money, when interest rates go down, prices go up. That's the correlation. Okay. So what we did not see in this cycle, when rates went up, we did not see prices go down. We've talked about the extraneous factors for that. But you got to understand appreciation. Okay? Because appreciation, cash flow, and the combination, those are the only 3 things any investment will ever do for you. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about life stage investing in just a second. But in the real estate space, we've all been pretty focused on the appreciation. What has suffered in real estate, and now I'm going to get into some geography, especially in the coastal states, Seattle to San Francisco, or Seattle to San Diego, Manhattan to Miami. Those tend to be appreciation markets. Okay, I've been doing this for almost 40 years. It's always been that way. If you want cash flow, generally speaking, geographically, you have to move away from the coastal markets and into the heartland. Now that's a general statement. There are outliers, there are exceptions, there's all those kinds of things. But my overall argument right now about the real estate space, and I participated in this, as you know, and I'm going to be participating in it again here shortly, is that the value add play, especially for new purchase money under $1 million, is in the appreciation. It's not in the cash flow. And the way to create that appreciation is to do something to add value to the property. Okay. Now, I was thinking about this morning when I was sitting on the bike at the gym. One of the very special things about real estate that makes it very different from other kinds of investing is that in real estate, you have much more control. You can do things to the investment. You can add value. You're not just at the whim of a market or some management team or hope and prayer. None of that really, I mean, it kind of plays, but more specifically in the real estate space, you can do something. You can buy a house with a big lot, like my partner and I did. You can create a new lot. You can go in and rezone something. You can build an ADU. You can go buy a piece of land and build an apartment complex. You know, these are all value add kinds of activities. And historically over time, these have proven to be the winners. Okay. So when I say, you know, the coastal markets are not really cash flow, what I'm also saying is that's for most things that you buy as is retail. If you can go in and make a better deal, if you can go in and do something to add value with the right property and the right vision, you can certainly create cash flow. But to buy it off the shelf, it's pretty rare. And here's the other thing that I'll mention in the real estate space, then I'll move on to cash flow. Don't get hung up on this cap rate thing. I know everybody does. Believe me, I've been doing this a long time. The problem right now with most asking price cap rates, not all, but most, is the cap rate is higher, the cap rate is lower than the interest rate. So if you're borrowing money at 7% and the cap rate is 3%, you're losing 4 points on the spread as soon as you close escrow. Because the cap rate is the rate of return as if you had paid all cash. So the technical term for that would be negative arbitrage or negative amortization. So pay attention. If the cap rate is less than your interest rate, that's not a buy and hold if you're trying to make money. Okay. Now, if you can buy and do something to it, that's a different story. Okay. Let's talk about cash flow. Okay. So in Does It Pencil, I teach a one-page sheet called APOD, APOD. It's all over course 1. Okay. The APOD summarizes for real estate your income, your vacancy, your other income, your expenses, and your debt. Those 5 things at the very bottom, when you do all your math, that shows you the pre-tax cash flow. That shows you, number one, with a smaller property, whether you're positive or negative. And if you take that pre-tax cash flow and divide it by your down payment or the cash you put in, that gives you what's called your cash on cash return. That's your rate of return on your equity investment. And that's what you should be measuring if you care about cash flow. Okay, so if I put down $100,000 in cash, and I go through all my income, all my expenses, and all my debt and everything, and let's just assume that I get $10,000 a year at the end, that's a 10% return on my cash. That's what we call cash on cash in real estate investing. Okay, now my argument is this. I have lots of arguments. Don't worry about what you're buying. Worry about what it's doing for you. Okay, if you're investing for cash flow, if that's your objective, it's not a vanity play. It's not an appreciation play. It's a buy and hold play. And over the years, especially with smaller properties, I've seen so many times people say, "Oh, this is a great investment." And my two-word reply is this: prove it. Prove to me why it's a good investment. And as soon as we take an APOD, start running the numbers, we realize very quickly this thing is losing $2,000, $10,000, $20,000 a year. And it's a sad but true statement that too many listing agents don't know that. I've seen it too many times. So hear what I'm saying, don't hear not what I'm not saying. What I'm saying is, if you're just buying retail off the shelf in a metro market, coastal, cash flow is tough. Not impossible, but tough. All things being equal geographically, the Midwest, the heartland, has always been a better cash flow pay, less of an appreciation play. However, if you can buy something and add value to it, then maybe you got a winner there. But understanding the APOD and how to measure the cash on cash, if your intention is buy and hold, those things are critical. Those are must-know skills. All right? Okay, the third thing. It's what I call the combination. So the combination is, in fact, the combination of the appreciation and the cash flow. So here's the idea. If I'm sitting here today, I'm going to use an example. Let's say I want to buy a fourplex, okay, in my town. And so I'm going to look at this fourplex and go, okay, I'm going to use some Does It Pencil stuff and say to myself, what's going to happen if I own this thing for 5 years? Okay, so I'm going to do two kinds of calculations. One calculation is I'm going to make a reasonable estimation of appreciation. Okay, now a very common thing that we used outside of the outlier called COVID was we used about 3%. Okay, the statistics for the last year are that real estate appreciation has been, in fact, about 1.5%. And we talked about this about a month ago, and many of you in your local markets agreed. Now, there's going to be outliers. We need to remember that. When we talk about generally speaking, right now the number is less than 2%. So whatever you do, you have to say, okay, if I buy this fourplex today, what do I think it's going to be worth 5 years in the future? That's time value of money. That's appreciation. I'm also going to do some estimation of cash flow, the APOD, for 5 years. I take all that stuff and I put it into a T account, and that's course 2 of Does It Pencil, and I solve for internal rate of return, IRR. And that tells me what my overall picture is when I buy it, it depreciates, and the measurement of my cash flow. IRR is the most comprehensive and the most complete measurement of rate of return that I think any of us can use. Okay, I'm a big fan of IRR, and I've gotten in more than one scuttlebutt with different brokers talking about the difference between using IRR and using cap rate. And my argument remains, you have to understand cap rate because everybody uses it, but IRR is much more the mature tool to use because it's more comprehensive. All right, so to review, the 3 things any investment in anything will ever do for you, and you got to start with this. They can appreciate, they can provide cash flow, or they can provide some of each, the combination. And that's it. That's all they can do. It's only those 3 things. I don't care what you're putting your money in. It's only those 3 things. So the next part of it is this. What should I do? What should I be investing in? Okay. So again, my argument is you have to look at where people are in their lives. Okay. So I'm just going to take 2 people on this call right now. I'm going to take Tian, I'm going to take Jacques. Okay. Because, sorry, Jacques, she's better looking than you, but you're much wiser. So you guys are a good sample set of the group here. Okay. Okay. So Tian has fully disclosed she's in her 40s somewhere, low 40s. Jacques, you're somewhere in your over 40s. Okay, we'll call it that. So, considerably over 40s. Okay, that's your full disclosure, not mine. Anyway,
Yeah.
so let's see. There's nobody here who's in their 20s or 30s, but if there was, I'll start with the 20 or 30 people. Say, so the way I teach this is this, 25 to 40. And these are not hard numbers, but just kind of that range. You're getting your first job, getting going, finding somebody, starting a family, whatever you're doing, that 25 to 40-ish range. That's what I call stage 1 of life stage investing. The investments you should be making at that stage of your life are appreciation investments. Why? Well, a couple reasons. One is the magic of compound interest. Because if you can make those investments at an earlier age, by the time you get to a later age, you've let that thing just sit and do its thing, that compounding of appreciation. So you really should be investing for aggressive growth. Now, the implication there is that aggressive growth carries with it aggressive risk, which means risk of loss. See, people's brains go, oh, if it's risk, I'm going to lose. Maybe. Maybe not. See, a lot of it has to do, I think, with your knowledge. Okay? A Like if you're the expert in your market, like you know where all the bones are buried, all the bricks, all the deal, and you see something come on the market for 500 and you know it's worth 900 because you know your market, well, what's the risk? You know. But if you just meet somebody willy-nilly and they say, oh yeah, I can get 20% of your money, give it to me, and you've never met them before, I have no idea what they're doing, whatever, that's a risk. It's different. Okay? But at that moment of one's life stage, my argument is invest for aggressive growth in stage one. Okay? And a part of what I think everybody should do, and I've talked about this as well, if you go to doesitpencil.com/retirement, there's a free one-page worksheet calculator there. And I've proven the difference between if you start at age 25 and age 40 and just put in like $200 a month into an S&P no-load index fund, you'll have over $1 million more when you're 65. So for that part of your future, if you can just start in your 20s and put away something and don't touch it, future you will be very, very happy. Okay. Now, Tien, you've said you've got 3 little kids. That is something that you and your husband ought to start thinking about right now, whether it's college or whatever you guys are doing. But the sooner, the better. Compound interest for everybody. Okay. Okay. Stage 2. Stage 2, I'm just going to loosely define as 40 to 60. Okay. Or 40 to 65, whatever. Just kind of that range. In that range, you should be investing for some of each, the combination. You should be less aggressive and a little more focused on cash flow. Why? Because when you're 40 to 60, you don't have as much time to make up for mistakes you made when you were 25 to 40. That's the reason. It's time. Okay? I mean, all this money stuff, it's held up against the backdrop of time. Every financial decision is. You know, people say, you know, which mortgage should I get? First question is, well, how long are you going to own the property? If you're going to own it a year, get an ARM. If you're on it 30 years, get it fixed. You know, and me, you know, Mr. Almighty Desert Pencil, I'm sitting in a mortgage broker's office 20 years ago, and he looks at me and he goes, no, 15 years ago, he goes, when's the last time you owned a property for 30 years? And it just was like the best therapy I ever had. And I went, duh. So I got a 7-1 ARM for like, you know, 150 basis points less. And I think it was 4 years later, I lost the house and the wife. So that was a pretty good financial decision. Saved a little on interest on that one. Anyway, so the time deal, very important. And in stage 2, you're not able to make up for losses like you could in stage 1 because you're older. All right, stage 3. In stage 3, you should be investing mostly for income, for cash flow. Okay, age 60 plus. Okay, I've met very few people, I'm sure they exist, but I just haven't met them, but very few people in their 70s who are like, oh, I want to buy a piece of land in the path of progress, and hopefully in 20 years I'll hit the jackpot. No, 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 no. They're like, hey, can I get another couple hundred, couple grand, few grand every month? That's what matters to them. So as I've gotten older and gone through all this stuff in my 35 years of doing this or whatever, here's what I've learned. The sooner that I can take my own situation and move it towards a cash flow situation, the better I am. The more secure I feel about my future. And I started doing this about 10, 15 years ago. You know, I do some appreciation stuff, and I still do. But my portfolio, because I'm 63, has more income investments in it than it used to. Because I live off of part of those. So that I can volunteer my time and spend every Friday with you guys, right? It's all about you. Okay. So that's the basic idea with life stage investing. Okay. And I think if you're working with clients, it's a very important thing for you to consider and to counsel them with as well. Okay. Because not every investment meets every person's needs. Okay, so when I'm talking to folks, the first conversation I have with them is we talk about being happy. Because of course they're just like, oh, show me the good deal. Well, let's stop for a second, okay? What are we really trying to do here, friend? And once we get beyond the happiness and I get the expectation thing, super important, get that as soon as you can, then I start giving them the sermon about appreciation, cash flow, and the combination, okay? Now, what I've learned in my life, and so I do the class obviously called Does It Pencil? Most people, when you ask them if something pencils, what they're focused on is, does it cash flow? I don't know why, but that's people's kind of knee-jerk reaction is, does it cash flow? All right, I'm going to take a big breath there and turn it over to you guys. Craig, what do you think about today's sermon? What have you drawn from this?
Well, it's spot on. I mean,
Oh, that's good.
I mean, it's very meaningful for me. I'm having these conversations very much with my wife right now. We've made some good decisions, but we've made a lot of bad decisions. I've made a lot of bad decisions. Let's just put it that way. So, so we're looking at, okay, I'm 63, cash flow is it, it's like cash flow's king. I don't want to be investing in land. So it's, it's a great conversation, and it's a meaningful and a timely one too.
So if you're investing in cash flow in your market where the median home price is 1.8 million,
Yeah.
then you really got to have the value add conversation. Okay.
Well,
or
yeah,
let me just throw this in real quick. So I have a very dear friend, he's been a broker for like almost 40 years. He's a couple years younger than me. And I see him a lot at the gym and we talk. He took Does It Pencil like the second time I ever taught it a million years ago. But he's done very well as a realtor. He's one of the top 3 guys in the market. And he's done a lot of investing. And his strategy right now is he's divesting himself of his real estate assets that have appreciated, and he's choosing to pay the tax instead of going into 1031 tax deferred exchange investments. And he's going to put most of his money in bonds and just invest for income. So he's moving from the real estate appreciation into the liquid markets for cash flow. Okay. And I don't think that's a bad strategy because he's investing for safety. Okay. Go ahead, Craig.
No, that's a great idea. And I get it. It's like the secure bond is going to be with a good return, and if you've already paid taxes on it, I guess you'd put it in some kind of a Roth IRA or something,
You can do that too. By the way, for those of us in the 63 club, there's a special provision right now with Roth IRAs, and I think it's germane to 401ks, and we can set these up as individuals. But we can triple our Roth IRA contribution at ages 60 through 63. The last year is 63. I'm doing it this year. And I'm going to max that baby out because all that growth will be withdrawn tax-free as I get older. So it's a special provision for those of us in our early 60s. Check with your tax advisor. I can get some information for it next week and give you some links. But right now there's a special provision for those of us in that age group. It expires when you're 63 to supercharge your Roth IRA contributions. Okay? Farzine, where you been, man?
It's been crazy, and I'm just like, I gotta make this to this thing, so I made it.
I'm glad you showed up. It's good to see you.
Thanks, buddy.
So it's good to have our people from Boise on board. How's things in the 1A?
It's a crazy market. Things are moving, and it's pretty good, but people say there's a lot of homes on the market. There's a lot of overpriced homes, and they don't look that great either. So, it's an interesting time.
Andy, what do you think about what we talked about today? What do you got? What's your feedback? There you go.
I've just been, my kids are young adults, been harping on them about taking advantage of the time they have to take advantage of compound interest so they're not in the same predicament as my wife and I where we are catching up.
Last
How
week,
much is enough? How much is enough is a really important one.
it's a huge one.
That's yeah. That at some point in there, I mean, we all have to start to think about this. And I'm older than most, not everybody, but that it is.
But you
okay,
look good, Michael.
you've saved a lot. How much is enough? Say again.
You look good.
We try.
You know, healthcare costs are a thing as we get older, and we should think about those things as well. Jacques, you said that your wife is infirmed at some level. I'm sure you've had some bills that you probably weren't expecting when you were younger. You know, that's just part of the deal.
Joe, something that a lot of people don't think about, and I'm as guilty as anybody, but it's like 75 or 80% of us are going to end up needing nursing home. And a lot of us don't prepare for what that costs. It's like $10,000 a month right now is the average. And you can't get insurance for it anymore. And it's catching a lot of people unawares.
Yeah, I mean, if you're younger, they'll sell you a long-term care policy all day long. But you're right, Jacques. You are. So you're in Idaho. In Washington, the state will supplement you, I think, up to about $6,000 a month. But it depends if you're indigent and broke, and it's all money stuff. But you're absolutely right. You are 100% right. You are. So I would like to get someone on at some point who is a specialist in that. And I've met a lady who is. I was interested to find out that, so I'm an alumni of Washington State University. They have a big hotel and restaurant school there. And now they have a department in the hotel school that gives you a college degree specialty in long-term care facilities. So they have planned for the demography that is upon us. You know, so I knew there's something like about Craig. We're both.
Baby boomer wave is here.
Well, that's it. So Craig and I demographically are like at the end of the boom. I would say some of the rest of us are too. But it's a thing, you know. So I'm gonna mention one other thing here, and then we'll wrap this up. The guy that I showed you the video of last week, the Clear Value Tax guy, he's great. I really like him a lot. And so he has a new video out I was watching this morning, and he was talking about investing for debasing. And you can go watch this yourself if you're interested. But he's talking about basically betting against the dollar, and he's talking about the valuations of gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Now, I've been buying gold for a long time, and gold's been pretty damn good this year. It's up a ton. But I also have some cash that's, you know, it's not losing anything, but it's not doing anything. And I've always, if I've worried about our economy, I have worried, and I've been very upfront about this, that the Fed just keeps printing money, and that debases the value of existing dollars. So if you are concerned about that, I would encourage you to think about looking at some of those things as well. Gold just hit over 4,000 this week. So if you have a bunch of cash and you're not sure what to do with it, you might just want to watch that video and consider what he has to say. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm going to leave you with this. For any of us right now who are sort of worried or concerned or questioning our future, because remember, it's all about the future, what I recommend, the first thing that you do is understand right now what your costs are. Okay? I mean, just start with 1 month, whatever you got to do. But what are your costs? Okay? And be honest. You know, and the hardest thing about that is the stuff you spend in cash. So if you can get off the cash thing for a month and just do something that where every penny you spend is traceable, and then sit down and organize this and look at it. you'll get a much better understanding of what you're doing every month. Because my argument is there's absolutely no way that you can know what you need in the future until you know what you're consuming today. That's 100% about your costs. Once you have those two things together, then you can go to the next level of the conversation. And Michael, you make a damn good point for those of us who are, you know, in stage 3 of life stage investing at whatever we are. But yeah, it's a good time to start thinking about, geez, I better do that before I can't, whatever that is, you know, because the one thing we don't want to leave this planet with is a bunch of regrets.